Good evening, everyone. Today is Friday, June 13th, and what a Friday it's been. I don't need to tell all of you that. I'm sure all of you, like me, have been following the news as to what has been going on, and a major escalation has happened. And I don't want to do too much recapping on what's happening, what is happening, what has happened. I'm sure a lot of you know or are keeping up. It's also very difficult, of course, to discern what's real and what's not as we approach forward with these sort of attacks going on. Um, I'm hearing all kinds of reports, and some of them are being debunked on the fly, some of them turning out to be true. One thing we know is that Iran has in fact started its retaliation efforts, and has started to strike against Tel Aviv, which is kind of concerning and kind of crazy. This obviously was going to happen, a sort of foreseement. And there's a couple things that have kind of been put into question here. One, of course, is whether or not we can actually trust the Trump presidency now, or I should say the administration as a whole, as to what's actually happening. They claim that they knew the attack was coming, but that they were not involved militarily. And this has led to some questioning as to whether or not they might have done this same strategy in the attacks that happened against Russia with Ukraine that happened on June 1st, I believe, or June. It was about a week ago or so, right? That happened where the Ukrainians striked against Russia, unloading a 18-month long operation. Overall, the situation in the world is obviously just getting worse and worse, and this is why, when my friends and I decided to intervene when we did, starting 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, actually, when I first started intervening against Kamala Harris. Some of you may know me as far back as then, or when I intervened against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is actually a very useful um, intervention, because at the time I yelled at her and I told her, you're a progressive socialist, but where are you against the war mobilization? And, I don't think I've seen a statement from her in regards to this situation unfolding right now. But regardless, could she, if she had actually acted in good conscience and good faith, actually have helped to prevent this escalation that we are in now? All it took was a few progressive voices to break with the Democratic Party at the time to actually say something. But that's okay. See, because when I launched my campaign, it was at that point, and I had already come to this conclusion beforehand, of course, but it was at that point I decided I'm going to stop complaining about what the two parties do or don't do and how they act, and decide to take matters into my own hands. And I decided to run for Congress, not because of some ego trip or some narcissist trip, but as an expression of what everybody should be doing now, which is declaring their independence again. See, we are at a pivotal point right now. Tomorrow marks Flag Day. This is something that Donald Trump is going to be celebrating with this giant military parade. Some have criticized it, of course, saying that it's just falling coincidentally on his birthday as well. Well, the way I see it, it marks the beginning of a years long celebration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country. And what this allows us to do is to remind ourselves about who we actually are. We were not supposed to be provoking wars, starting wars, aiding countries that seek to do that. That was never what our intention was. Our intention, of course, is supposed to be anti imperialist, pro development. We broke away from the British oligarchy, we broke away from the British Empire. Our job and our role is always supposed to be independent minded and freedom forward. And now we're masquerading as what we abandoned years ago. We are not the British Empire, nor should we be acting like it. And our government as a whole is currently occupied. And there are those who say that Donald Trump himself is being misled and misguided. I have reason to believe that he may not have actually known that these attacks were happening, and that he was not responsible for these attacks happening that happened against Iran. That being said, he is openly saying that he was and that he did. So, what's required here? Well, one is an activation of the citizenry. a real mobilization effort in a non-violent way. And I know that's something that bothers a lot of people and something that has been coming up repeatedly. What does it mean to be nonviolent right now? Especially when there's a lot of violence being committed. And I hear you. I see the ICE raids just like you do. I have family and neighbors and friends who are also living in constant fear of deportation, who are going to get a knock on their door at some point and are just waiting. Many people who have supported my campaign in various ways expressed the same things to me. What are you supposed to do in these kinds of situations? Well, the first thing I would urge all of you is to not think small. Um, you know, one of the ways that I say don't think small is, of course, um, you can't just look at what's happening in the world situation right now just based off of the ICE raids, or even just what's happening in Gaza, or what just happening in Ukraine and Russia, or of course what just unfolded now. We've been seeing a whole kind of faction fight that has been unfolding in the presidency in the last 2 weeks, at least, that has what's bubbled to the surface. You have to remember that Tulsi Gabbard just a few days ago released a video where she was reporting back on her visit to Hiroshima in Japan. And she talked about the devastating effects of a nuclear bomb and a nuclear weapon. Now, why would she release that video now, 2 months before the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Why not release that, maybe sometime more appropriately in August or so? See, because she knows that there are indeed players, not just around the world, but here at home, domestically, who are surrounding the administration and surrounding the presidency in a way to provoke and stoke tensions, nuclear tensions, trying to downplay the effects of a nuclear war. And we saw this. People like Mark Levin, who is a famous conservative commentator, think Rush Limbaugh on crack, put out a whole statement in the New Republic denouncing Tulsi Gabbard for using Obama-style revisionist history, talking about how the bomb was justified and should have been used again if needed, downplaying the effects of a nuclear war and of a nuclear winter. And staying on this topic of a nuclear winter, by the way, some of you may have seen that earlier I tweeted out asking, how many nuclear bombs does Israel have? Because I think they're about to use it. I remember having a conversation with Dr. Feroz Sidwa. This was maybe a few months ago, maybe sometime in September, so I don't remember exactly when. And we discussed how many nuclear weapons does it actually take to start a nuclear winter, because him and I were discussing how many nuclear bombs Israel may or may not have. And he said, well, the ranges speculate somewhere as low as 20 and as high as 400 missiles. And he said, however, 20 well-placed missiles is all it would take to actually launch the world into a nuclear winter, where a giant dust cloud of ash would just envelop almost the entire globe, and there would be no sunlight for 60 to 80 years. That's all it would take, 20 nuclear weapons, meaning that not every country in the world would have to unleash its military nuclear capabilities. Just a few exchanges back and forth between two nuclear power countries could be enough to envelop the whole world in darkness. So Tulsi Gabbard releases that statement, and usefully, it's also happening at the same time that Tucker Carlson, who also has direct connections to the White House, is making direct pleas and attempts to the presidency, urging him not to listen to people like Mark Levin, who was going to go and visit the president personally to convince him that war with Iran is a good idea. Now, like many of you have seen and saw, of course, this lately has been coming up on my feed. I'm sure it's been coming up on yours too. How many times has Israel said from 1992 till today that Iran was only, just a few years away, a few months away, a few weeks away, a few days away, a few hours away from building a nuclear weapon? This is something we have heard for the last 30 years. For the last 35 years, the threat of Iran having a nuclear weapon has always been on the horizon. But of course, people like Scott Ritter, who earlier when he was a weapons inspector, had, very strongly intervened. And he spoke up against, this idea that there were weapons of mass destruction. And that was when there was still some reason in the government. And we still see that reason, of course, in people like Tulsi Gabbard and others who are doing something in the administration. And the reason I bring her up so much, and that video that she put out, is that what I think she's doing indirectly, of course, is asking the citizenry to intervene. Now, of course, that's something we would do with or without her, but I think that that's what that is. She releases that statement in a public way. Of course, the administration would need to be cognizant of it. The administration, or at least Trump, would have had to known she was producing it. Just watch the video. Look how well produced it is. They know what it takes to make a video like that. At the very least, she had 5 to 10 people working on it, from shooting it, editing it, getting the graphics together, getting the audio together. She clearly used the funds and the resources available to her as the ODNI to produce that video. And you have to think about it, right? The amount of responsibility that this woman has, the amount of things that she's responsible for, and she decides that she needs to take the time to make that video. So you need to take that, spread it, but also we need to come together and think about something here. There is a way to know what is true and what is false. That has been the subject of the Poe classes and was the intention with the EIR of the creation of the Independent Citizens Intelligence Service in the 1970s. The idea is for people to now recognize that they have to join that right now before it's too late. As they used to say in the streets back then when selling newspaper, get the news before the news gets you. Because it's not news. It's agendas. It's not objective reporting. It's intervention. And once you start to work with us and with the ideas, you will experience this yourself. All of a sudden, something that you did to tell the truth becomes the news. Of course, that's the subject of our interventions and whatnot. And so thus comes my, hi everyone who's saying hello to me in the chat. But thus comes my concluding statements here on I promised that I would make a statement in regards to the state of the campaign and what exactly I'm asking all of you to do. Tomorrow, here at the office, at my campaign office, I'm asking people to come in from 10 in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon to join us in that intelligence process operation. I want to show you exactly what that looks like. And I want to show you all, I want to work with you on that. Now, for those of you who can't make it tomorrow at 10 in the morning, and by the way, if you do want to come and you'd like to know where it is, contact me personally. You can contact me on X or Instagram. You can email me, and I will be happy to get you on board and get part of the team with us. We'll be doing that from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock tomorrow. Just the state of the world right now and the way everything is right now, we need all hands on deck. Now, of course, if you don't know this, and this is your first time stumbling on this stream, I'm a candidate. I am a federal candidate who is running against Richie Torres, and I am currently in my campaign office right now. Our entire agenda, of course, is not just dedicated to beating Richie Torres, although, that's a plus. Our agenda is exposing what's actually happening right now beneath the surfaces. We're not exactly looking to be popular per se, just tell the truth. And in that, we can find a pathway forward so that not just the Bronx can prosper, but we can free the country and the world from the grips of oligarchy that are deciding to control it. So if you would like to get involved, you can contact me on Instagram or X, or you can email me at votevega.nyc. Finally, of course, we do need funds. We do need the support. We do need donations. We run on a $4,000 a week budget. So if you can donate at votevega.nyc/donate, that would be very, very important and allow us to continue our operations here on the ground as we continue this campaign forward against Richie Torres, but also, more importantly, against oligarchy and for the truth, because that's actually what we are committed to and what we are doing. And so before I sign off here, I just kind of want to highlight some chats here. I appreciate everybody who's typing in the chat. That's great to me. Let's see here. We have Samantha who said, I spoke with my Swahili. This is a big message. I spoke with my Swahili language partners in Kenya today. Guys, the world is watching the U.S. citizens, not the politicians, the people. It is so important to speak out against what is happening and let people know that we desire peace. We have to speak out so they know we care and we are not complicit. Kenya is having their own protests against police brutality tomorrow. We are praying for each other this evening. Thank you, Samantha. That was very nice. And that's actually, yeah, it's one more point I'll make to all of you, which is that in this state of the world we're in right now, where the United States is admitting to its duplicity and covert operations, other countries can't trust the government to keep its word, especially if it's going to result in using diplomacy as a two-faced tactic. So who can they trust? You, the citizen, based off of your actions, what you say, and what you decide to do between now and every hour for the rest of your life, basically. It's possible that Israel could end up using a nuclear weapon. We know they have them. They don't admit they have them, but we know they have them by tonight. So every hour does matter and every hour does count. You just have to decide what you're going to do with it. So if you'd like to help us out here at the Vega for Congress campaign in exposing that and being a part of that mission to stop the destruction and the war drive towards World War III, again, you can contact me at votevega.nyc and all my social media handles. I answer pretty quickly. So thank you all.